There's an old commercial that used to run on TV that said, "What's in your wallet?" And that may trigger some bad feelings for some people, but it may remind other people of that idea. What do you have? On today's Father Trucker, we're going to be talking about Jesus' feeding of the 5,000 and how that relates to the way we should see him and maybe the way we need to see ourselves as well. Welcome to the Father Trucker. Hey, so I'm rolling westbound on Highway 401, and if you saw the intro to the video, you may have a guess of where I'm hanging around. Some beautiful country, but the other place we're hanging around on the Father Trucker these days is in John's Gospel. Particularly today, we are looking at John chapter 6, and we're going to break this passage up into a few Father Trucker episodes because there's just so much to talk about there. But the first half of John chapter 6, commonly referred to as the feeding of the 5,000, which actually, sorry folks, it's not true. Bible says there's 5,000 men were in the crowd, but there'd be women, there'd be children as well. And so it's probably more like the feeding of the 10,000 or the 20,000. It's pretty amazingly significant. But here's what's going on. This massive crowd shows up to hear Jesus teach, and hopefully a lot of them are showing up there to see if they can encounter him and maybe have him touch a broken place in their lives. We've seen him doing that in the first 5 chapters of John's Gospel. There's just so much going on. Remember, though, all through John's Gospel, John has given us just a sneak deep look into the identity of who Jesus really is. And so several times through the Bible's Gospel of John, John makes reference to Jesus did this as the first sign or as the second sign. He was revealing who he is, and here's the cheat code. He's the Son of God. He is the Messiah, also referred to as the Son of Man. He is God in the flesh. He is the great I am, the one who has always existed and always will exist. And so Jesus, all through the gospel, all through his earthly ministry, is hoping that the people who are seeking him will actually see him for who he truly is. He doesn't want people just to be, excited about him, or just maybe to think he's pretty cool, or maybe to be excited about the things he does. He wants the people who encounter him to see actually who he is. He wants them to recognize that he is the Messiah sent by God to save the people from their sins and to set them free from their guilt. And so as we're racing this Volvo up this hill, he's got a load of cars on the back there, and I got a half-empty box, and so I'm just cruising along at the speed limit here. Big John, this is a bit of a tangent, but Big John's got a whole lot more under the hood than probably that guy does, but we'll let him get past it. So anyway, back to the story already in progress. These people have shown up because they're somehow getting a sense of who Jesus is. They want to hear from him. They want to encounter him. And those who would actually wish to see him and follow him, Jesus reveals himself to. And so remember, as we go through John's Gospel, we're paying specific attention to things Jesus says. And so what does he say? Well, in this story, as they're going through it, the disciples come to realize there's a huge crowd of people. They've been listening to Jesus for a long time, and they are tired and they are hungry, and they're aware of the fact that they don't have a fast food joint or a food truck showing up to feed these people, and it's a long way away. So Jesus, being so beautifully cheeky, says to his closest followers, "Hey, what are you going to do to feed these people?" And that's a Father Trucker paraphrase, but that's basically what he says. What are you going to do with this? What are you going to do to feed these people? What do you have to feed these people? What is in your ability to deal with these people's need, which is real and is imminent? Like, it's right there, it's pressing. These people need to eat, and if they don't eat soon, it's going to be a bad thing. And maybe the disciples are worried that they're going to start getting irritated, and maybe that's going to cause a problem. But Jesus asks them the question, what do you have, and how are you going to feed these people? And if you know the story, you know that one of the disciples says, "Hey, I found this kid who's got his lunch with him. He's got a little bit of fish and a little bit of bread." And Jesus is like, "Perfect." And so he takes it, and I'm sure being Jesus, thanks the boy for surrendering his lunch. And the Bible says, he offers it up to his father. He gives thanks, and then he brings it back down, and it starts to multiply. And at the end of the story, Jesus has fed the whole crowd with one boy's lunch. Like, a Happy Meal fed 20,000, which is amazing, obviously. So what's the relevance to you, Christian trucker? What's the relevance to you, my brother or sister out here driving truck trying to follow Jesus? Well, a couple of things I hope you take away from the story. Number one, I think Jesus would look at you and speak to you and speak to me and say, what's the problem around you? What's the problem in your world? What's the issue? And not just generically, but what's the issue that you are facing? What's the challenge? What's the struggle? What's the battle? What's the place in your life where you are a little short, a lot short? Maybe you don't have enough to make ends meet. Maybe you are up against all kinds of other issues, relationship issues, trucking issues, finance issues, maybe personal battles. You're dealing with addiction issues. I don't know what it is. But Jesus would look at you and he would ask you the same question. Would you confess to me what the problem is? Would you declare to me what your issue is? And so that's the first thing. He's asking you the question, what's going on? And so hopefully you're willing to be honest with him and tell him what the battle is, what the issue is. And so know that miracle applies to you. If you're willing to say to Jesus, this is what I'm struggling with, and this is all I have, this is what's in my hands, these are the tools I have, the resources I have, and I ain't got nothing else, here's all I have. If you would surrender that to Jesus, and I mean really, honestly, surrender it to Jesus, he will take it, and he will use it, and he will add to it his absolute incredible awesomeness and miracle working power, and he'll make it enough. He really will. Honestly, he will, if you'll surrender it to him. The other side of that coin, though, in this, if you've been watching these videos, you know I believe Christian truckers are not just truckers, but we're called to be missionaries for Jesus out here on the open road. We're called to be serving him faithfully out here on the open road as people taking not just our freight, but taking the gospel with us wherever we go and shining the light of Christ. And so I think Jesus would say to you, and I think Jesus would say to me, what's going on around you? And the same thing, what do you have? What do you have at your disposal to deal with the struggles and the problems and the challenges that you are facing in your world? What's in your hand? What's in your wallet? And I think if we would do the same thing and say, Jesus, the problem is too great. It's more than I can fix. The disciples say, you know what? Like, a month's wages wouldn't feed all these people. They recognize that they can't do it. And they offer up to Jesus what they have. And Jesus says, good, I can work with that. And so I think Jesus is looking at me and looking at you and saying, yeah, I know the problems of the world are great. I know the problems maybe in your neighborhood are great, or in your family are great, or in your church are great. But he would say to you, give to me what you have, and I will bless it and multiply it, and I will meet the need, and I'll use you to do it. Hey, I hope that makes sense. Please consider it. Read John chapter 6. Get in there, study it, pour your heart into it, let God pour his heart into you, and offer to him what you got for your own personal struggles and the struggles of the world around you, and watch what he'll do. Because he's using ordinary folks like me and like you to transform the world. He always has, he always will. Hey, God bless you. I got to go deliver a big box full of provisions for those who are in need as well. So we'll talk to you real soon. This is the Father Trucker. Stay safe. God bless. Talk soon.